Hello, PR Maven Nation. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, episode number 44, presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the Marshall Plan Strategic 65-Step Process. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm your host, Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I want to welcome you. This podcast provides my unique perspective on the world of public relations and personal branding, including what I hope will be actionable takeaways. It's all about the importance of enhancing your traditional face-to-face relationship building with the power of today's new technology with social media and other ways to connect via the internet. Every week, this podcast features interviews with successful industry leaders, top executives, and media personalities from around the globe. And this week's guest is no exception. We're here with Lori Harnois, the Executive Director of the Discover New England organization, and I want to welcome Lori to the PR Maven Podcast.
Presenting the PR Maven Podcast, hosted by Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven, targeted at business leaders who want to merge the best techniques of traditional networking with the best new platforms and technologies to engage your target audience, build your network, and grow your brand and business. The podcast is sponsored by Marshall Communications, Maine-based, globally connected. As we get ready for another great episode, remember, you can always connect with Nancy and other listeners on the PR Maven Nation group page on Facebook. Now, here's your host, Nancy Marshall.
Lori Harnois is the Executive Director for Discover New England, located in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Her primary role is to increase tourism to the New England region from overseas markets. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in Tourism Planning and Development with a minor in Sociology from the University of New Hampshire. Lori has 20 years of experience in the field of marketing, promotions, and operations. Previously, she worked for the New Hampshire Division of Travel and Tourism Development, holding such roles as Director and International Marketing Manager. Through these roles, she was responsible for promoting New Hampshire as a domestic and international travel destination in order to increase visitation, travel expenditures, business activities, and employment throughout the state. She also oversaw the New Hampshire Bureau of Visitor Services. She's had a lot of very important jobs. Lori is a past board member of the U.S. Travel Association, a member of the Eastern State Exposition, and a member of the Granite State Ambassadors. She received the honor of New Hampshire's 40 Under 40 in 2012. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's nice to have you. We've known each other for a long time, and you always lift my spirits just by seeing you.
Oh, how nice. Thank you. Well, the feeling is mutual.
Thanks, Lori. So to kick things off, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess it all started when I went to UNH and I studied tourism planning and development. At the time, it was only 2 universities in the U.S. actually offered that program, and it was UNH and another university down in D.C. And so I studied there, enjoyed my time there, did a few internships while in that role, and one was actually with the New Hampshire Division of Travel and Tourism. And so shortly after I graduated, I was fortunate enough to gain an actual job with the New Hampshire Division of Travel and Tourism. So I started off as their publications specialist. So I worked on things like our state highway map, our visitor guide. Back in the day, it was like sort of the start of websites, and so my job was to enter all the events into our website that came in off the fax and all that good stuff, and then eventually had the chance. I got promoted to do their domestic marketing, so I did a lot with the group tour market for New Hampshire. Got the chance to start traveling a bit domestically. And then a new position was created within our state of New Hampshire, and it was their international marketing manager. So that's where I really got exposed to different cultures and learning about a global economy and trying to connect businesses in New Hampshire with companies overseas. And so I did that for quite a few years, and then basically, it sounds like I've done all the positions within that division, but was fortunate enough to have some great mentors who took a chance on me and allowed me to be the director of tourism for the state of New Hampshire, and really feel like that was a great honor to be responsible for rebranding the state of New Hampshire's marketing campaign, which is still in effect today, which I'm very proud about. Also, as you mentioned, oversaw the state welcome centers at the time. Before I took over, the welcome centers were actually housed under the Department of Transportation within New Hampshire, and they decided to transfer them over to tourism. So it was quite a learning experience for me, because my background was all in marketing, not in operations. So I got a crash course on operations and some things that I'm not necessarily feel like I needed this knowledge about septic systems and things like that. But it was a good challenge for me, and a great way for us to interweave tourism into those frontline visitor centers that were greeting the travelers coming to the state. And I enjoyed my time there. And then this opportunity with Discover New England opened up as executive director, and it really it was a great opportunity for me to broaden my horizon, to be able to represent a whole region, learn about the other states within New England, represent my home state of Massachusetts as well, where you take pride of where you come from, and again to kind of go back to the part that I really enjoyed of marketing and the international side and learning about the different cultures. And I think you learn so much when you travel as well. So yeah, and I've been at Discover New England now for just over 4.5 years. So time flies.
Yes, it does when you're having a ball.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I feel very fortunate. It's a great industry and it's a great region to be able to promote.
Yes, it is, definitely. And so you've lived in a few different states in New England, and now you're representing the New England region internationally. What do people around the world think of New England when they think of it, or do they think of it?
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting about the job, is because we live here, we know our own opinion of New England, but and each country kind of has a different impression of the region, I think. Like I hear from people who come from Italy that they really feel that New England is such a romantic area. So, and I agree, like the inns and B&Bs and, a snowy day in New England and being on a sleigh ride, it is a very romantic setting. Other countries, for instance, one of our new markets of Australia and New Zealand, they are used to going to the West Coast just because it's closer to them. But I hear that they can't believe the old wealth that comes from this area and these grand buildings like the mansions down in Newport, or just the history of our university systems that are here, and architecture. So I think in some instances, like we as New Englanders might take what's around us for granted, but then when you interact with people from around the world, you really see that we do live in a really fantastic place of the world that's so unique, especially within a country that has a variety of different things you can do in so large as the U.S., that New England really has a special feel to it.
Right. And one thing that I've always thought of is how I think Europeans love the New England villages with the church spire.
Yes.
And the buildings in the downtown. And I know that for a long time I was trained to always promote the village feeling with the white church at its center.
Absolutely,
and that's something that and also I know German people love the idea of being able to go walking in the woods, and also I think German people grow up reading stories about Native American Indians paddling the birch bark canoes
Absolutely,
on
yes.
lakes, and that's something that we have to offer here too.
Exactly. And I mean, the wonderful seafood that comes out of our coastlines. Of course, the Maine lobster is so well known that it's just, and they can't believe that you can get a great lobster meal for the price that we pay here in
Right.
New England, where it's typically double that amount where they're from. So
Right.
if they can even get it, right? So so it's so interesting to see how each country perceives New England, and I think that's what's that we have to adjust what types of press releases or itineraries that we develop to those countries based upon their interests too. So it's just a fun job to have for sure.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently with your career?
With my career. I think about that sometimes, and because I have a niece who's just in college now, and try to give her as much advice as I can possibly give. And I think for me, I really wish I took a semester and studied abroad. That's where I feel like it's just, again, you can learn so much from traveling, learning from different cultures. I think you respect people too more by understanding other cultures. I think just different ways of thinking too. And so, I think I wish I took the time to study abroad while I was at school. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's something I had the opportunity to do my whole junior year in France.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
lucky
I
girl.
did. So 6 weeks in Paris, and then the rest of the year in Normandy.
Oh, wow.
And I had a Eurail pass, and I traveled all over the place. And I mean, there's never another period of your life other than college when you can have such freedom, and also people take you in.
Yes,
I was always like, I was always such an American. They just loved, here's the American girl. And I would even sometimes play guitar and sing songs, even though I'm not very good, but they just loved. So, it's interesting that you kind of grow to learn more about yourself, as you said, in a foreign country.
Yeah. And I think now that, when we have visitors or friends that come over, just from meeting colleagues in different countries, you want to share the same experience that we have here,
Right.
With them too, to teach them. So I think it's, just that opportunity to, and especially you spent a good amount of time there, like that.
9 months. Yeah.
You really feel like you become a local, right?
Right,
And so,
yeah. It got to the point where my French was so good, people would know that I wasn't French, but they weren't sure exactly what country I was from. So I was kind of proud of that, too.
Yeah. I know, that's
And I have relatives from Germany, so I traveled to see them, and I learned a lot about kind of my family ancestry from visiting my German ancestors, too.
Yeah, it's so true. And I remember even when I first started working and when I first got the chance to travel abroad, my boss at the time had said, take, a day or two at the beginning or the end of the trip so that you can understand, just and talk with the local people, so you understand what their interests are too, and what they like and stuff, and that will help you in the long run too. So
right, yeah. That's great. That was a good boss.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that a little. Most of the time, they want you back, right?
Right, get back to your desk and get following up on those inquiries.
Yeah, exactly. So try to capitalize on those opportunities.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about PR and mostly social media. I mean, different parts of the world use different social media platforms in different ways. And so what have you learned about using social media in different parts of the world?
Yeah, oh gosh, I think it's becoming more and more prevalent in all the different countries that we work in. And it's critical for us with Discover New England because we don't have a large budget. So we really have to capitalize on ways we get earned media, whether it's through traditional sources or working with social media. efforts. So I think that it's critical, and I think also in our roles at Discover New England and the limited budget, we're very much based upon business relationships that we have. So I know personally, like even with my own Facebook page, not necessarily the company's Facebook page, but that, I stay connected with a lot of my colleagues or clients, just, as friends, because you develop relationships. But, back in the day, I probably would have only saw those people maybe once or twice a year, but now I know what's happening in their life on a daily basis, right? And that just helps to strengthen relationships on a personal level, but on a business level as well. So I think, social media, not only getting the message out about a destination, but also just building those relationships with your key clients is critical. So,
well, I'm glad you said that, because the whole premise of the PR Maven podcast is that you need to grow your network through both online and in-person networking.
Oh, good.
And you can't do just one or the other, because, people who just stay online and never get out of their own home to go to other places, you don't have those authentic face-to-face relationships. And also, if you just do face-to-face, and then, if you're meeting up with somebody in Europe and then you come back here and you don't stay online, then you miss out on all those important moments when they get married or have a baby or whatever it is. You want to stay up with their news. So I think really it's the combination of the two types of networking that you need.
Absolutely, completely. I think that actually right before I came in to have a chat with you, I looked on my Facebook account and noticed that one of our clients over in Germany just had a baby. So that I was like, oh wow, so it is, it is critical just to help build that and strengthen that personal relationship with those people.
And then people know, like, and trust you, and they're more willing to do business with you if they have that know, like, and trust factor.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some of the obstacles to success that you've faced in your career, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, some of the obstacles, I would say, really, dealing with a small budget now, a smaller budget, for instance, that I have in my role now. In my previous role, that budget was probably 7 times the budget that I have now. And, now I'm promoting a whole region versus a state, and I'm promoting them to an entire world. So that's a big obstacle for sure. So I think it's just proven that you really have to build those relationships to maximize your dollars that you have to spend. For instance, I remember when I first started in this role, I was looking at the research that we had, and it showed that about 50% of New England's international visitors come in through the New York Gateway. And before, we had really focused on the airports that were located in New England, in Boston Logan Airport, which is very critical to the arrivals coming into the region as well. But I was joking that I was stalking the people from New York City and Company, because I was like, we need to make a relationship with them. This is silly. Obviously, New York is one of the major destinations that people who want to visit the U.S., that's a must, right? New York's a great city. So we should be capitalizing on those visitors and telling them, okay, once you're, 3 to 5 days in the city and you want to get out, come north. Don't necessarily go south. We want them to come north and visit New England. So I really took that initiative to create relationships with the people with New York City and Company. And we had as a result of that, we started to market in Australia and New Zealand. And since it's a very far market versus Europe being a bit more competitive with them. And we did our first East Coast mission down there. So we partnered with New York and Company, Philly, and DC to try to say, come to the East Coast versus the West Coast. And there would be no way that we could have tapped into that market on our own. So I think that was maybe an obstacle that was out there that we really capitalized on the relationships to further our budget, because, it wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Right. So. Well, that makes so much sense, because I think if you're in New Zealand or Australia, you're not really thinking in terms of New England. Like, you're not going to say, I'm going to go visit New England.
Right.
You might say, I'm going to go visit the East Coast of the United States.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
So the farther away you get, the less any particular county or state or region matters.
Yeah. It's like us going there, right? We're going to want to try to go to all those major cities that are over there.
Exactly.
And probably also take a 3-hour flight and hit New Zealand, right?
Right.
So,
oh yeah, I did that when my son spent his junior semester abroad.
Oh wow.
In Dunedin in New Zealand. So
nice.
I went and visited him, and oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did. It was such a great experience.
Yeah. So I would say that just working with a small budget and trying to overcome that obstacle is probably, I'm sure, a common obstacle people have.
Right,
that's
exactly.
An example how we sort of try to get beyond that, and so yeah.
Good. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll be back with more from Lori Harnois. I'm going to say that again. We're going to take a quick break now, then we'll be back with more from Lori Harnois. But in the meantime, it's time for our book and things to do pad giveaway. So to win a copy of my book, PR Works, and a PR Maven Nation Things to Do pad, which, by the way, Lori, you're going to be getting one in the mail.
Oh, yay! I love it.
Because I imagine you're probably one of those people who likes to check things off.
Completely. I love those to-do books. They're lists that you have. Yeah.
Even if you've already completed something, then you still write it down so you can have the satisfaction of checking it off.
Yes.
That's sort of an OCD thing a lot of us share. So go to prmaven.com/giveaway to sign up. You might be our next winner. And we're going to be back in just a moment after we hear about the Marshall Plan. Effective marketing is all about targeting your ideal audience with your ideal messages and your ideal media. That's the idea behind the Marshall Plan 65-step process. We have refined and tweaked the Marshall Plan process over the past 20 years because we aim to help our clients to come up with a strategy for their marketing that identifies their ideal audience, messages, and cost-effective media to connect their messages with their audience. For example, if you're running a McDonald's franchise, you probably don't want to target vegans. And if you have a vegan restaurant, you probably don't want to target people who love McDonald's. So that's the process we go through. We get up in the helicopter and we fly around together and look down at your business and come up with the best strategy and ways to measure your success. Check out marshallpr.com and learn more about the Marshall Plan. And thanks for listening to the PR Maven podcast today. Welcome back, and today we're talking with Lori Harnois, Executive Director of Discover New England, and I want to dive right back in with a few more questions. So Lori, how do you measure success in your PR, social media, and marketing?
Yes, so we measure success very closely. That's something that we take seriously, especially with our PR efforts. We track the press clippings that we generate, whether we host like a familiarization tour of a writer or a blogger or a vlogger that's coming into the region. We make sure that we track any articles or posts that they talk about our region, so that's one form of measurement. Also, we work with a fantastic PR agency that...
Full disclosure, they are a client of Marshall Communications, and Discover New England did actually start out with a Marshall Plan.
Oh, with a Marshall Plan. We're still using it, too.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and you guys do a great job at tracking all of our social media efforts, whether it's our Facebook page, our Twitter account, our Instagram account, and YouTube channel, but and also that you look after our website. So all the web stats are very important for us to track as well. And also if we do like an advertising campaign, it's critical for us to track that success. Again, just with like a small budgets, we want to make sure that we're using our money wisely. So if we do something, for instance, like with Expedia, we make sure that we track how many clicks go onto the ad that we're doing, how many nights are booked as a result of the time that the campaign is running, the flights that are booked, and all that. So measurement is very key to what we do, whether it's PR, advertising, or social media. So,
yeah, well, of course, you have member organizations. Your members are the directors of tourism of the New England states. And they have audiences they have to report to. They have to report to their legislatures, right? So
yes.
It's important that they have metrics to report out. So
that's critical, yes.
Yeah.
So we've got to help them justify the programs that they do on the international scale. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you want to get those budgets up, then
exactly. Yes, yeah. You got to show that you're doing the right thing with their dollars. So,
right, exactly. Yeah, that's something, especially with public money, that's really important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
So, Lori, most successful people have a network of fans and followers, either online or in person or both. And how have you built your network of fans and followers? And has it been a conscious goal or has it happened on its own?
Oh, gosh. I think that in my personal experience, I would say it probably has happened naturally. I think people like to be around people who they think are doing a good job, that they're a nice person, and that so personally I think that that's how I've grown my network. I can say that this was a very humbling experience. For example, this was a very humbling experience for me where I really saw the network of people that I was surrounded by and how they supported me. In my previous role, I mentioned how I was the director of tourism for New Hampshire. And so this is a role that's appointed by the governor, and I'm not a politically charged person by any means. And so in that realm, in New Hampshire, the governor puts forward a name, but they also he or she has a executive council that does the final okay on what is recommended. So they vote on it. And so the 5 counselors didn't know who I necessarily was because I wasn't in the political scene. And so they requested a hearing, which was basically like a job interview on steroids. And but what was humbling to me was just to see the people from the industry and who were my network. They showed up and they all testified on my behalf, and that was really something that I'll never forget in my life as part of my work career, because that probably was the biggest kudos I could have gotten. So I think from building the network, that really was something that really paid off for me. So
I love hearing that. I had an experience when we lost a major account, actually, and Russell Walters, who you may know from
Yes.
Northern Outdoors rafting company in the Forks, Maine, he called me and he said, "Nancy, your network will come to your defense, and don't worry, your network will take care of you." And that statement, and of course he has a nice British accent.
Yes, yeah.
It's in my mind constantly, and that was probably, almost 8 years ago. So, and it was so true. So
absolutely.
exactly what you're saying. And so building a network, making a conscious effort to build your network is something that will pay off in spades. And actually, building your network doesn't mean always taking either. It involves giving and take. So giving and making deposits in your network too.
Absolutely. And actually, this may be a deposit example that's I'm working on right now is that we had my first boss. She passed away in November, and she, which was a huge loss, I mean, she was the former tourism director for New Hampshire back in the late 90s, and she had then moved on and was down in Berkshires, Massachusetts. And so, unfortunately, her funeral service was down, well, it wasn't unfortunate, it was in Massachusetts, and many of the New Hampshire people who knew her network, didn't have a chance to go to the service. And so I sit on the New Hampshire Travel Council, and I had said we should do something to recognize her. I mean, she was a big leader for the state for quite some time, and so we've decided to do a tribute to her at the New Hampshire's Governor's Conference. And so I feel like that's a way that I'm giving back to not only my network of people, but her network of people too. And it's been amazing. At first I thought, oh gosh, I don't know all the people that she knew, obviously, but because when I was working underneath her, I was I was much younger than I am now. Yeah. And so it wasn't like we were hanging out as, I was her intern, and then I was a junior, basically. And so I knew a couple people that knew her. Dan Lewis was one, who was the former tourism director for Maine. And what has been neat is that they've helped me sort of branch out to her network. So
That's
networks
great.
are so important to
Yes, they are.
people. So but giving and receiving from them is important.
I think of it like cultivating a garden.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to weed certain people out, actually.
Yes, that's
so
a good
there are
point.
some weeds in the garden.
Yeah.
So, Lori, how has your network helped you to advance your career?
Well, I think that my network, just going back to that example of that hearing when I was going for the director position, that would be an example of how they really have helped my career. I also think I served on the U.S. Travel Association board, which is out of D.C., and I was an at-large position, and so my network of industry friends had nominated me to be on that board. So that I would say has furthered my career too. So, and I honestly don't think I would be in this position today if my network of people didn't trust and believe in me. I think that definitely has helped me further my career.
Well, I talk a lot about the know, like, and trust funnel. And, if people are going to do business with you, first they have to know you, and they have to like you, and then ultimately they have to trust you. And that's something that takes time, too.
Absolutely, yes.
You sometimes have to show up.
Yeah.
Well, you always have to show up.
Yes, yeah.
And also, I know when I see you, you're going to brighten my day. I mean, that's how I think of your brand. And so I think that your attitude towards life and your work definitely helps strengthen your brand.
Oh, thank you. That's very
You're
nice.
welcome.
Yeah. I agree, though. You have to know them.
Know, like, and trust.
Like and trust, yeah. It's very critical. Yeah.
So along those lines, what would be your one piece of advice for someone starting out in their career?
Someone starting out in their career, I guess I would say, and this goes back, I actually remember when I was 15 and I was moving from Massachusetts to New Hampshire, and this girl in my high school had come up, and she had moved a few times, and she had said, the best advice I could give you is to smile. And I think that I've taken that to heart, and I think it sort of opens the door for people to approach you and get to know you, and it was, if I could go see her now, she was 15 at the time, but that truly was the best advice that someone gave me,
I agree, absolutely. A smile has opened a lot of doors for me over my life, and people will remember you for that too.
Yeah, and I'd also say, don't, I guess this would be for someone that might be younger than me or like my niece, I would say, don't think you can't do something because of your age. Like, I feel like I was, people took a lot of confidence in me, and I was in some situations where I didn't think I'd be testifying in front of the legislature or meeting with the governor on a biweekly basis in my 30s. And trust me, it took me a lot of yoga and learning how to breathe and calm down, but it was, I did it, and I wouldn't change that for the world. And you just can't say because you're young you can't do something. So.
No, well, when I started my PR agency, I was 31, and my position was downsized where I was working at the time, so I had about 2 weeks to get my business going, because Sugarloaf basically eliminated my position, but they said that if I could get organized as an agency, they would give me a contract. So yeah, and I was like, I'm not ready. I don't know how to run an agency, but it's like when you have to in order to pay your bills. And I had a mortgage at the time, so I got myself organized. And
good for you.
I mean, I had 2 weeks notice.
Wow, good for you. And look where you are now, right? Yeah.
It's been a long road, but I think, again, going back to, you put a smile on your face and you go out and pound the pavement and get some clients. And
I mean, it helped me as a new student. And I went from a school that had like 400 kids in total to 2,000.
Wow.
And it was, that's intimidating. But she said, just kept that in my head, like, just keep smiling.
Yeah, you should look her up. Do you remember her name?
Yeah, I do remember. I should look her up.
Make sure she listens to this podcast.
Yes, exactly. So, I don't know.
So, Lori, is there a resource such as a book, a website, or an app that you have found helpful, and why?
Well, for a book, I really like the book, The Tipping Point, because I think it made me realize that, an individual or a society will get to a point where something has to change, or like it tips you over. And I think that has helped me just in my own personal goals and paving my path of, okay, well, is this something that I want to do, or is this and trying to change anything that might be a project that I'm working on too. So I'd say that book was very impactful. I also, on a daily basis in my role, I really find, for a quick read, the North American Journey's Inbound Report does a good summary of market stuff. So on an international tourism rule, I think that's a good quick resource. It's only like 2 pages. That is, and I mean, they've got links to further articles or in-depth articles, but that's a good one. And then, every day, like in the morning, I check out LinkedIn and the latest articles that people are posting on there. Again, it goes back to your network, right? Like just to see what your colleagues are finding interesting too. And
exactly, and to leave some comments and likes and give them a little bit of boost too.
Yeah. So I would say probably those 3 things come to immediate mind.
Yeah, well, those are very helpful. So is there one parting thought you'd like to share with PR Maven Nation?
Oh, gosh. I would say one parting thought would be, Marshall PR, we really appreciate all the work that they do. I would say that if people don't know about Discover New England, check out discovernewengland.org. That we would love to help encourage international visitors to come see their businesses. We do a great annual event that we put on, the Discover New England Summit, which actually will be in Maine next year, so that's exciting.
When is that?
This year it will be May 13th through the 15th.
And where is it this year?
This year it's in Connecticut at Foxwoods.
Yeah.
And next year, I don't know the exact dates off the top of my head, but it's in May, and it's in Maine.
At Sunday River.
Sunday River,
right,
yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah.
All right. And if PR Maven Nation wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way that our listeners can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with me probably would be to email me at info@discovernewengland.org, and that probably would be the best way.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, Lori, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you and so much fun. And you bring, a whole new perspective to tourism marketing, the international perspective. And I want to thank you for everything you do for all of us in New England.
Well, thanks for having me.
It was fun.
Yes, it was.
So PR Maven Nation, thanks for joining us today. And I want to thank Lori Harnois for joining us too. And remember to go out and keep building those relationships both online and in person. And we'll see you next week, PR Maven Nation. PR Maven Nation, that wraps up this week's podcast live from the Governor's Conference on Tourism at the Augusta Civic Center in Augusta, Maine. Thanks again to Lori Harnois for joining us today. If you have any questions for our guest or would like to hear more about a certain topic or from a certain person on the podcast, feel free to email me, nancy@prmaven.com. This podcast is presented by Marshall Communications, the creator of the 65-step Marshall Plan strategic process. To learn more about the Marshall Plan, visit marshallpr.com. And please check out the Marshall Communications webinar series. To watch any of our free webinars, visit marshallpr.com/webinars. Thanks for tuning in to the PR Maven podcast. And remember, you can always subscribe to the podcast at prmaven.com/podcast. Did you know that if you have an Alexa device, you can say, "Hey, Alexa, play the PR Maven podcast"? You can also find and enable the PR Maven podcast skill in the Alexa app to get our latest flash briefings. We appreciate your listening and encourage you to share this podcast with your friends or coworkers and let them know they can find it on their favorite podcast player. And remember to go out and keep building relationships and embracing new technology. Have a great week, PR Maven Nation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the PR Maven podcast. For show notes, links, and guest contact information, visit prmaven.com. If you'd like to connect with Nancy and the rest of PR Maven Nation, be sure to find our group on Facebook. We encourage you to subscribe to the podcast and share our content to bring on great guests with more information. Plus, you can also connect with your target audience, build your network, and build your brand.